Be warned, what unfolds here is memory stitched from police ink, gravel dust, and the indifferent hum of streetlights that never blinked. The Zodiac killer's first attack sent a shiver down California's spine. Years later, the air in those scenes still feels colder, as if the temperature itself never rose back to normal. Patrol cars rolled across dark pasture roads, radios cracked while breath fogged inside windshields, newspaper presses coughed out headlines before dawn. Beneath all that noise lived the white silence of rural edges and city lots, where lovers leaned close and thought the night belonged to them. It didn't. Not anymore. He walked into that sense of privacy like a draft through a window, unseen until the flame wavered.
Where the gravel shoulders narrowed and the fences leaned, quiet never sounded the same again. December settled over Lake Herman Road like frost on barbed wire. Empty fields, stubbled and pale, pressed against a blacktop lane that turned secret after sunset. A Rambler station wagon idled there, windows clouded by breath and whisper. Shoes left prints near the passenger door, neat ovals in damp earth. Nearby, cartridge cases would glitter in flashlight beams. The wind had a metallic taste, the kind that cuts through wool coats and makes fingers slow. He came without a horn, without urgency. A silhouette folded into the shape of a car door. Doors opened. Words may have been spoken, or only the terse commands of a stranger who wanted control as simply as he wanted air. Gunfire tore the night, the sharp, dry cracks ricocheting off fence posts and cattle guards. Birds thrashed from trees, then fell back into place as if nothing strange had happened. A boy lay where the bullets drove him. A girl ran under a sky empty as glass until shots found her back. Christmas lights flickered a county away while their futures thinned into steam. Deputies arrived to headlights washed pale. Tinny, country music still murmuring from a dashboard, a purse overturned, coins scattered. Breath formed ghosts before each mouth. The ground told a story of angles and quick retreats, of a weapon held steady and boots that did not hesitate. The coroner's pen scratched, lenses clicked, canvas sheets slid shut with the faint rasp of zipper teeth. Parents stared through glass doors, not understanding how that quiet bend in the lane could hold such ruin. An unmarked map drew itself in the minds of those who would patrol the road from then on, as if danger had sprouted there like night weeds that you could mow down but not uproot.
Fear traveled ahead of the news trucks into kitchens and into the gaps between lovers' hands. If there was a name for the thing that had stood in that gravel, nobody knew it yet. What wakes a city faster than fireworks? July built its heat in layers, and Blue Rock Springs Park wore the smell of spent sparklers and burger smoke.
A compact car rolled into that lot after night's midpoint, engine ticking as metal cooled. Music drifted from over the hill. Inside, a young couple leaned close, eyes adjusting to the soft wash of dashboard light. Tires crunched. A separate car coasted in without hurry, then paused behind them, pulled away, circled back. A maglite beam flared at the window, blinding and clinical. The figure at the glass seemed like any patrolman, until the first pops dented the air. Glass dusted the seats. Muzzle flashes painted the inside of the car, strobing across knuckles and hair, and the startled clutch of hands that couldn't hold bullets back. He left, and returned to finish what the first volley had not completed. The smell of gunpowder clung to the upholstery. Over the hill, someone laughed at a joke and tipped beer into grass, unaware. Bleeding, a survivor watched the shape depart. Broad shoulders, a careful gait, hair trimmed close, a face that would dissolve in a sketchbook and reassemble in the nightmares of anyone who studied it too long. The air itself seemed to recoil. Sirens had to be summoned by human hands, and those hands shook. Blood streaked upholstery. Flares burned on asphalt while mosquitoes swarmed the ambulance lights. Nurses tied tourniquets. One whispered a prayer under her breath, lips barely moving. The 4th of July kept on exploding in the distance, as if joy had its own stubbornness. A few miles away, a payphone waited beside a low-slung station, the receiver greasy from 100 rushed calls and apologetic confessions. Coins clacked into the slot. A flat voice reported carnage as if reading a train schedule, then shouldered credit for the earlier winter killings. Behind him, a car engine coughed. Somewhere a dog barked. The handset returned to its cradle with a composure that felt obscene. The operator traced the call to the corner where fluorescent light bleached pavement, and officers swarmed to find only the smell of gasoline and the clicking of a loose sign in the midnight breeze. In that call's calm cadence, bravado congealed into ritual. Shock spread like a brew through neighborhoods that had believed danger hunted elsewhere, in city alleys, in other people's stories. Now it breathed across their lawns and perched on the hoods of their cars. Envelopes arrived with stamps placed just so, nameplates of newspapers peeking out from mailroom bins. The paper felt cheap. Block letters marched across the pages in a hand that flattened personality into menace. Inside one, a wheel and crosshair symbol stared back, a circled target drawn with almost loving care. Editors stared at code that bristled with symbols, straight lines, and crooked intent. A nearby pot of coffee burned itself down to tar while columnists argued over ethics and timing. Ink-stained fingers, the room smelled like heat and paper. Pressmen waited for answers from police that came with the slow caution of bureaucracy. When agreement finally cracked through, the glyphs rolled to thousands of porches. Couples unfolded the morning and found a puzzle where their cereal ought to have sat. At a kitchen table, a teacher traced patterns with a pencil, his wife noticing rhythms in the chaos. Solutions took form. Talk of killing out of belief, of servitude beyond the grave, the words arranged without remorse. Pride bled through every line, followed soon by a salutation that would become a signature. It appeared again and again, introducing a persona that treated death as a correspondence school. I have ideas, you shall listen. I will grade your response. Patrol cars began shadowing school buses after threats that sketched a sniper's sick method with chilling utility. A city's routines, routes to work, teachers' morning duties, parents' cracked jokes at the curb, suddenly hid in the shade of that symbol printed in black. In the homicide squad, desks gathered stacks of photocopies and envelopes slit open along neat seams. Handwriting experts peered at the certain curl of a letter, a pressure feathering the page where the pen came to rest, a consistent hesitation betraying a practiced disguise. Reporters learned the weight of that voice, the sly pedantry, the childish demands, and the cold inventory of injuries inflicted. Police phones rang until the wires hummed. Tips blew in like leaves, dry and crisp and mostly useless. In a fluorescent room with blinds half closed against the sun, detectives flagged leads that felt right for a day before they spoiled. A watch with a brand name that echoed the new signature. Tales of a neighbor who cleaned a car too carefully after a holiday. The ordinary turned into a gallery of suspects. Composite sketches sat pinned to bulletin boards, a face framed by horn-rimmed glasses, hair clipped neatly, an image that hardened into myth while the living man stayed fluid. Fingerprints from a calf's blood-slicked door, a partial palm on a letter, gloves rumored and residue traced. Scientists swabbed gum-backed stamps decades later, hoping for saliva that would sing a name. Sometimes the result was someone who had only licked an envelope in the post room. Sometimes there was nothing at all, just adhesive and wishful thinking.
Patterns twisted like a rope. California became a bind of places tied together by fear and obsession. Country lanes, city corners, newsrooms, phone booths. All of it arranged by a mind that prized spectacle and control. He didn't need to stand beside every crime scene to cast a shadow over them. The voice alone could do that.
Years made the paper brittle. Files yellowed and whispered when opened. Yet the puzzle glowed fresh whenever another cipher arrived in a mailbox or a new decoding technique found a foothold. One solved grid's surrendered boasts but no identity, a laugh pressed between characters as neat as a ledger. Another offered detail about bombs that never bloomed. The city learned to check locks twice, to scan rearview mirrors, to hesitate before pulling into a lot that felt too quiet. Despite the work, the name remains a room without a door. Eyewitnesses aged and softened details until they felt like dreams, while others clung to a moment's clarity with the tenacity of someone who had paid for it in blood. Files carry suspects who walked like him, spoke as he did, enjoyed the same cheap food, wore the same heavy boots. A few fit like a jacket thrown over cold shoulders. Warm, close, not quite right at the seams. Alibis frayed, but never tore. Death certificates closed some options neatly. Others lived and denied until their own stories ran out of pages. Detectives passed minders to younger hands, notes penciled in margins, arrows pointing to places where an answer might be hiding in a line everyone had read too quickly. Night still has his timing. You can feel it on certain roads when the air goes thin and the weeds hush their rubbing. A cab passes and a passenger glances at street names. A bus rounds a corner heavy with children and laughter. A payphone stands rusted in a lot haunted by old fluorescent buzzing. Somewhere, an envelope sits in a box where spiders have mummified flies. Somewhere else, someone leans over an aging typewriter with a ribbon that smears. The open spaces of the map still line up if you trace them with shaking hands. And in the quiet that follows a snowfall or a distant fireworks finale, that careful voice seems to lean in again, patient and proprietary, waiting for someone to notice the pattern he set into motion.
After all these years, when a porch light flickers and a late edition lands on wet steps, who listens for footsteps and wonders which stories will never learn their author's name? Subscribe for more Midnight Legends.